Hi, this is Mark Arnold, and we're here on Fun Ideas Productions Fun Ideas podcast. And today we have Rick Squid Guidotti, who was a guitarist for the Turtles and Flo and Eddie for about 30 years. And I have to thank Charles F. Rosenay for setting up this interview with me today. And I just wanted to say hi, and how are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great.
And so like I said, basically Charles said you've been with the Turtles for 30 years and you had a bunch of stories. I have a lot of questions, I suppose. So how did you get involved with them? Obviously, you weren't in the original Turtles in the 60s. So when did you encounter Mark and Howard?
It was around 1986. I had a very popular cover band in Los Angeles, and we were doing a British invasion show. And this is before there was any Beatlemanias or any of these other things. Anyway, we started in 1981, and we used to dress up like the Beatles with white shirts, skinny pants, Beatle boots, and little thin ties. And we would play songs like not the ones you hear all the time, but stuff from their first few albums, and also the Hollies, the Kinks, the Dave Clark Five, the Animals, all of those, the Rolling Stones, all those big bands from the British invasion. And we had four good singers, and we could harmonize really well, and we became extremely popular. People would line up out of the club night after night, all week long. People would cheer when we walked in the room before the band started. In 1982, we were so popular in Long Beach that George Harrison of the Beatles heard about us while he was attending the Grand Prix race in Long Beach. And he came into the club and loved us and stayed all night and shook hands and said to me, "You do a good John." And you could have shot me right there because John had been dead for like a year or so, and
Wow.
I just was complimented by a Beatle. And anyway, word got around, and a guy came into the club and became our friend who knew Flo and Eddie. He was from another band that had done with work with the Beach Boys, and he happened to know that the Turtles were coming to Disneyland,
Hmm.
and they were going to do a show. And he thought, why should they fly their band from New York to Los Angeles when there's a band here already that knows all the songs and can play them perfectly? And so he told Flo and Eddie about us. They heard us one way or the other. I can't even remember how. I know they didn't come to the club, but we played with them at Disneyland. They really liked us, and we became the West Coast backup band for the Turtles.
Hmm.
And then so at that point in time, they had a New York band and
Right.
a West Coast band. So we do all the shows on this side of the Rockies, and that continued for quite a while. Although there was some alcohol problems with some of the members, and we had to lose a few extra guitar players that we didn't need. But in the end, I was the one that stayed with them for 30 years because I behaved myself.
Now, did you play with Andy Kahn? We interviewed him pretty
Oh,
recently. So,
oh, good, because I was going to recommend you call him if you hadn't.
yeah.
Yeah, Andy and I are best buddies, and we
Okay.
would we would travel together all the time. In fact, at any of the shows we had here in California, it turned out it was way more fun to rent a car and drive to Frisco or to Vegas than to deal with all the security and the parking at the airports and all that. So Andy and I had quite a few adventures together.
Well, well, I've heard even from like Howard's autobiography, Howard Kalin, that in the latter years of the original Turtles, they preferred being on buses than airplanes and everything else after a time because it was just more fun and they could, do whatever they want,
Exactly.
So, um, now Andy participated in a lot of their recordings as well, like even some of the children's albums like Strawberry Shortcake and stuff like that. Did you participate in any of those projects as well, or you just only went on tour?
No, I was just their backup guitar player. I didn't do any recordings with them at all.
Oh, okay. Because I was kind of wondering about that because I got Andy's book and he's talking about how he produced this and he played keyboards on that. And so I thought maybe you got a guitar lick in there somewhere. Now, when it's East Coast and West Coast, uh does it ever overlap? Like if you say, hey, Mark and Howard, can I come with you to the Bottom Line in New York when you do one of your Halloween shows or New Year's shows or whatever? Or is it
Absolutely
just like,
no.
okay.
Absolutely not. Although we were on good terms, and on occasion, let's say if our bass player couldn't make it, they would fly the New York bass player out, and a few
Okay.
times they flew the drummer out to work with us. But that was about it.
Oh, okay. And because everybody, including yourself, said you kind of know all the songs backwards and forwards, as it were, uh, did it take a lot of time to rehearse, or did you just kind of just do it, or do you have a set of like 10 songs or whatever, and you just always did those 10 songs?
Any rehearsing we did was usually at the sound check right before the show, because
Okay.
these are all seasoned musicians, and if you say "Born to Be Wild," they know how to play it.
Yeah,
In
that's what I've
fact,
kind of figured.
yeah, in fact, in the early days, they used to use me to, pad up the hour because they didn't have quite enough hit songs to take up the full show. And although Mark would often talk and tell the history of the show and make a lot of jokes, but they would say our guitar player is the human jukebox, and they would let people call out oldies from the audience and try to stump me.
Oh,
And
wow.
so they would yell out things, and don't worry, my girlfriend will get that. And
Okay.
anyway, they Inagata Davida, boom, I'd go into the lick, uh,
Hmm.
blah, blah, blah. And some of the songs became part of the act. For
Hmm.
example, Andy probably told you he did work with the Monkees, and I taught the band how to play Daydream Believer, and boom, that was one of the hits that they would do just for fun.
Hmm.
Sometimes in the middle of the show, they'd say, "You guys like oldies? How about this one? Our keyboard player played with this band. We do Daydream Believer. Our drummer washed Santana's car. We do the end of Black Magic Woman, stuff like. Or our
Right.
bass player can sing like Robert Plant, and we do a whole lot of love, and just add a lot of fun into the show.
Yeah, I bet. Um, was it pretty much on those type of things? Was that kind of totally ad lib then, or was it pre-scripted at all?
It was pretty much up to Mark.
Okay.
Whatever he felt like he'd yell out, we'd do it. And if it worked really well, it would become part of the show.
Ah, okay. So a little both. And West Coast, did you literally tour everywhere on the West Coast, west of, say, the Mississippi? I guess is where the cutoff was probably.
Yeah, more or less. And it's when it started off, they were doing like 60 shows a year, and
Hmm.
roughly 30 for New York and 30 for the West Coast. And things changed and evolved over the years. And in fact, that's what happened in around 2015, I guess. They were tired of doing these one nighter. See, we would never go on the road with them. What we would do is fly to Phoenix, play a
Hmm.
concert, fly back to LA. And then
Hmm.
in a few weeks, fly to Seattle, do a concert, fly back. They were all one nighters.
Oh, okay.
And eventually they decided they did want to go back on the road. And sadly, that was the end of them using either of the bands from
Hmm.
either coast, because if they're traveling with Mickey Dolenz or the Grassroots, and all these guys know how to play happy together,
Right.
and so they save a lot of money by just using whatever band was in the bus with them at the time.
Right. So I guess what you were officially a Turtles featuring Flo and Eddie band versus like the Happy Together tour. You weren't on that. Is that correct?
Exactly.
Okay. Okay. I got it. Okay. So I probably saw you and didn't know it because I know I saw the Turtles a couple times at the Santa Cruz Beach Boardwalk and they did free summer concerts probably, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago. So, yeah,
Yeah,
that was, yeah. So
that'd
you
be
were probably
me.
there.
Yeah.
Is there any excuse me, any particular venues or any particular concerts that you found particularly memorable, or anything that stands out over the years as just either a great concert or just a funny thing that happened on the road?
Boy, I wish I was good at those kind of stories, but I'm not. After 30 years, it's all kind of a 200 motel LSD trip of blurry memories, you know.
Mhm.
I know I really had a lot of fun. We played Hawaii. One of the smaller islands was it Maui.
Mhm.
You know, I can't even remember. But we got to spend the day driving around and seeing the sights and going into a lava tube and all kinds of stuff like that. Stuff like that. I really. Here's one that I'll never forget. Right after 9/11, things changed. Of course, the airport
Right.
security got really tough, and a few weeks after that horrible experience, we had a show in Texas,
Mm.
and I talked them into letting me open the show with the Star Spangled Banner.
Oh.
And I did a sort of Jimi Hendrix like,
Cool.
left out the bombs and machine guns and things, just played it more or less straight and loud. But to have thousands of Texans in front of me taking their hats off and standing at attention, that was heartwarming.
That was pretty cool. Okay. So there's a few memories here and there. One thing I was curious about, you said uh, that you kind of all flew in separately for a gig. So other than performing, did you spend much time together, or how did that work? I mean, like, say you did the concert, just a random concert, and you said, okay, we're going to such and such place. What would be like your schedule for you?
this the schedule, and this never varied. After the show, uh, splash some water on your face, grab a little snack if you can, go to Howard's room, and puff till 3 in the morning. It was,
Great.
yeah, and I mean, all those stories that you might have read in Andy's book, or I don't know if you saw the movie My Dinner with Jimmy.
Yeah,
Did
I did.
Andy
Yeah.
tell you about that?
Yeah.
Anyway, all those stories I heard straight from Howard's stoned mouth, sitting up with him until 3 in the morning and just letting him talk and talk and talk and talk. And it was actually Andy and I's suggestion that he put those stories into the book, which he did.
Hmm.
And then the night he told us the story about going out with Jimi Hendrix and getting so blitzed that he threw up. Well, the man, that should be made into a movie, and it was.
Right.
And so, a lot of good times with Howard. Now, Mark rarely participated in any of that. He would
Hmm.
go to his room, call his wife, and go to bed. He was
Wow.
very, very business oriented. In fact, when we first met him, he was taking pride in the fact that he didn't do drugs anymore
Right.
and blah, blah, blah. But over the years, there were some occasions where he broke that rule, and he was a lot more fun when he was high.
Yeah. Well, I know, and you probably went through it, that he went back to school for a few years. Were you touring with him during those times, or he went back to
Yeah,
college? Hmm.
yeah. He became a professor at the Marymount College here in Los Angeles,
Hmm.
and then of course he moved to Tennessee and worked at
Right.
the school there as well. So he was doing both at the same time. And like I say, we weren't really touring. We would just go out on the weekend. We'd be
Hmm.
back by Sunday, and he could go to school for the Monday through Friday.
Hmm. And so after it was over, after I assume you got a little time to sleep afterwards, but then you just had to fly out and fly back home. So it was just like zipping around really quickly like that.
Exactly.
Okay. So what did you do between gigs? Did you have other gigs? Did you do more
Uh,
Beatlemania type things or
uh,
other performing?
yeah, that had its ups and its downs. Uh, Back in the 80s, like I said, and into the 90s, my cover band was extremely popular. In fact, there was one point where we would work 6 shows at Disneyland in the hot sun
Hmm.
and then go play a bar from 9 until 1:30 in the morning. And I'm telling you, I got very sick. In fact, I was so burned out. But we didn't have, working with the Turtles was never that grueling.
Yeah, yeah.
But here at home, yeah, I kept the band working up until somewhere in the 2000s. I started losing my voice.
Mm,
The band finally fell apart. We changed some members, and we went from being the most popular band to working these hotels when there was
mm,
nobody in there, and it was no longer fun anymore. And I did a variety of silly jobs, like I worked as a background extra in movies.
mhm.
And one of my friends got me a job driving on a feature film, and I was actually Halle Berry's driver before she was famous in one
Mm.
of her first movies, and she
Wow.
liked me.
Oh,
And
cool.
and like a fool, I was very businesslike and behaved myself and never flirted, and I blew it.
Mhm.
But yeah, I did some things, and then when things got really slow, I ended up with a delivery job with a big printing company, and that was hell on earth. I was in traffic all day lifting heavy, heavy boxes of papers and magazines by the dozens, by the hundreds. One time I did the math, and
Mhm.
when I arrived at work, bending over, picking up 4 tons of paper and restacking it.
Wow.
Yeah, it sucked. That company, it finally went out of business. It was the happiest day of my life.
I've done some heavy lifting jobs before. I used to work
Oh,
at the bookstore, and they'd say, "Lift that box over there." And I had previously had a customer service job, and I came back to the bookstore. Well, all we have is stock clerk, and I said, "I'll take it because I needed some work." I quit after 4 days because I didn't want to do so much heavy lifting and found something else. I was like,
yeah,
ah.
yeah. Well, when I started that delivery job, after the first week, I wanted to quit, and like an idiot, I stayed with them for 8 years,
Wow.
and and I made myself indispensable. And as the company went out of business, they laid off people. They went from 30 to 20 to 10. At the end, it was like me,
And
hello,
she's
and they
still
said,
there.
"Hey, we've got 2,000 books we have to put together." And
Oh,
they were due yesterday. And I said, "Yeah, we'll find somebody else. Goodbye. I
mhm.
am just done with this."
Now, during those years, were you doing any touring or any concerts? Like
No,
in,
during those years, I could say the Turtles gigs slowed down to only a few per year, and I did have another band here in Los Angeles.
Mhm.
Once again, it was an oldies band, but it was a surf instrumental band. So we were still playing Beatles, Moody Blues, stuff from movies, Good, Bad, and the Ugly, Goldfinger, James
Cool.
Bond, all as instrumentals because in the 90s I lost my voice
Mm,
and I could no longer sing. And so I had the surf band, but they weren't working a lot, only a
yeah,
few times a year.
yeah. I don't know if you mentioned it, but maybe you did. The earlier cover band that got really popular. What was its name? Just out of curiosity.
The name of that band was Rave Up.
Oh, okay. I actually
Yeah.
heard of that. Okay, just kind of curious.
Well, it was
Um,
it was a British slang term for a wild party, and the
yeah,
Yardbirds had a album called "Having a Rave Up"
right.
with the Yardbirds,
Mhm,
and actually then there was another band that
mhm.
came after us called the Rave Ups, and they did have a hit single out, and well, we never got that far. In
Mm,
fact, the problem was we were so popular, and every bar we played at would offer us a free dinner before the show, and then free drinks all night. And a couple of the guys in the band became really bad alcoholics,
ooh.
and it ruined a good thing because we were so popular all over town. We were playing the biggest nightclubs and the Ritz-Carlton hotels, and they were flying us to Florida to work at Disney World, and we worked the opening of the Universal Studios in
Mm,
Florida, and we had all the best gigs. But then we had a couple of guys who were drunk all the time, and it
mm.
wrecked it for everybody.
Uh, too bad. But at least it was fun. How long did that band last, basically?
Well, my memory is fuzzy. The death was a slow curve, but we were extremely popular in the 80s,
Okay.
very popular in the 90s. Toward the end of the 90s and the early 2000s, that's when things
No.
really started. Well,
Oh.
Mothers Against the Drunk Driving actually took quite a toll because before that, a lot of clubs had happy hours and we'd go in and play early and then stay for the whole evening. But that came to an end.
Mhm. Now, apart from the Turtles, did you cross paths with any other groups that you might have played in over the years, or did you just stick strictly with Mark and Howard?
Yeah, I didn't work with any other big name. I worked
Mhm.
alongside of them.
Oh, okay.
So, So with the Turtles, I got to be real good friends with Peter Noon because
Cool.
we
Yeah.
did a lot of shows with the
Hmm.
Herman's Hermits. We
Right.
did a lot of shows with Paul Revere and the Raiders, and we did a lot of shows with the Grassroots. So I got to know them as buddies, but I
Right.
never really. Only one time I got to go on stage with the Beach Boys,
Oh,
and
that's fun.
it's a funny story because I knew a couple of the guys in the band. They were good friends of mine, and the guitar player invited me up, and he said my amp will only play one guitar at a time, so I'll kick your guitar in at the end of the song. I said, okay. I'm playing Barbara Ann. Fine. I played Barbara Ann a billion times, and at the end of the song, he kicked me in, and I started playing, and every note I hit was horrible and sour and wrong. And it's like, what happened? Aren't you in the key of G? No,
Oh.
they played it in G flat, and I wasn't aware.
Ah.
So it was the worst solo I ever played with the Beach
Oh,
Boys.
wow. Now, how does that work? I mean, I've played piano before, but I don't know much about being in a band. I mean, do they tell you ahead of time what keys are thing in,
Well,
or do you just
they
have to kind of
should have.
know?
They should have, yeah.
Okay.
Or I should have paid attention, but I wasn't. I'm looking at the crowd. I'm like, I'm on stage with the Beach Boys. I never once looked at the guitar player's hand, which would have been a giveaway.
And that's another thing, I guess, about the Turtles or just being in any of your bands. I know like over time, people's voices change and things like that. Did you have to change keys in songs over the years?
Not
As
really,
okay,
no.
okay,
Howard had a great voice. Mark's
right.
voice got a little weak later in life, but then we'd have our bass player cover for him,
Hmm.
double his part or whatever it took to make it sound good.
Very cool. And let's see. I mean, when I saw him at the Boardwalk, it was pretty much a straightforward show, just music. But I know from various recordings. In fact, I have one here because I know you're not on this, but there's this one called the Turtles featuring Flo and Eddie that came out, and I think at concerts they sold variations of that one. Um, there's like a few like jokey tracks in the middle. Did they try to keep those to a minimum? There's this one called the Prison Song, and Mark kind of goes, dun, 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 dun. It's like really short, and they goes, that was a song I wrote in prison. I was in there a very short time, things like that. Did you do like little shtick like that, or were you pretty much let's just
We
do the hits?
No, we did a lot of stick. Well, it was all up to Mark, whatever
Right.
his mood was. In fact,
Hmm.
there were times when I was standing on stage thinking, Mark, you're talking too much. Let's play a song, because he could go on and on and on. But
Hmm.
most of the time, he was really funny, and the
Hmm.
crowd loved what he was up to. And yeah, we do a lot of little snippets, like when they'd say, they'd give a little bit of the history, and they'd say, yeah, we did the music for the Strawberry Shortcakes, and we play a couple bars of the
Okay, so
Strawberry
you know all
Shortcake.
that stuff.
And then we also worked for the Care Bears. We played the exact same music, and they just changed the words a little bit, and lots of humor. But I gotta say, I always had a great time, and I would laugh on stage, and it was always genuine. Mark could be really funny when he was on point.
Hmm. And what about Howard? Is he just pretty? I know he has a sense of humor, but I mean, did he instigate anything, or is he just like, I'm just going to be the singer and I just keep singing, or how does he
Uh,
operate?
he, he does, in general, play the role of the straight man.
Hmm.
So it's like Abbott and Costello. Mark is a clown. Howard is a straight man. Uh, Mark would mess with Howard. Howard would feign annoyance, but it was just part of the show.
Hmm. And I know they've been friends since childhood. Did they seem to get along after all the years of everything together, or was it kind of an act? It seemed like they actually loved each other and still do.
They did. They
Yeah.
did.
Okay.
Once or twice, there might be a little bit of friction there. Somebody wants to do something, and the other guy doesn't want to do it. But in general, they had gone way beyond that, holding grudges or disagreements. They realized they had a good thing, and the smart thing was to keep it going.
Hmm. Now on their concerts, I mean, uh, did hey, how do I phrase this? Were you always just on call? So it was like at the ready, or were there sometimes where you just could not make a gig? It's like, I got a wedding to go to, or I got something else to do. I can't do this, or I'm sick, or whatever.
I never, in 30 years, I never missed a show. They were never at the last minute. They always called us weeks, if not more, in advance, let us know what was going
Oh, cool.
on.
Okay.
And there only one time I missed a flight.
Ugh.
And lo and behold, Mark, who was living in Los Angeles at the time, had missed it also. So the both of us, he couldn't get mad at me for doing the same thing he did. So
Right.
we both got on another flight and made the gig. One
Oh,
time I was supposed to be in Seattle. Oh, my equipment was supposed to go to Seattle and it went to Hawaii, but they somehow got it back in time. And after that, I stopped bringing my own guitar. I just have two Strats on stage for me.
okay.
I mean, the first time I brought my Strat to a gig, the damn airline people smashed the new case that my girlfriend had bought for me to pieces. And I said, I'm not bringing my guitar anymore. A Strat is a Strat, you know.
Right, right. In fact, I think I don't know if you saw it. You probably did because you're part of the touring group at least. I used to see on the Turtles website years ago when you were doing these tours, it was like this agreement that anybody could actually fill out, but you had to fulfill all the obligations, and it said stuff like that. It's like you have to have a certain amount of guitars, you have to have a certain amount of water, you have to have this type of food, you have to have, this many all these different qualifications, and then the amount, I forgot the amount, of like $5,000. I don't remember. It was just some blanket amount. If you could do all this, we'll fly out anywhere. We'll do your birthday. We'll do anything. Just as long as you. Did you ever see those agreements, or did you add anything to that to get like the guitar on stage and stuff like that?
Yeah, in the beginning, we'd have, I think it was called a rider, and
Yeah.
it was just what you were talking about. It was a list of demands.
Right.
Like the bass player wants a big tall Ampeg amp, and the guitar player wants two Fender Twins, and
Hmm.
in case one of them crapped out or whatever,
Hmm.
and two Fender guitars, and so yeah, all that was written out, and but later on, it kind of, a lot of the sound people we work with on a regular basis, and they kind of knew what we wanted. And they
That's
would
cool.
have stuff ready for us.
Okay. Was there ever a show that you signed up for and then you found out, oh, this isn't worth it, and you just walked away and didn't do it? Or did you fulfill any obligation that you agreed to do?
Oh my God, twice,
Oh.
twice. They okay. The first one we were playing at a swimming pool in the middle of nowhere in Arizona. Okay, fine and dandy. Somebody, the promoter, I use the term loosely, didn't promote a damn thing. Nobody knew the Turtles were playing at this pool, or if they did know, they weren't about to drive into the middle of nowhere to go see it. So we arrived there. There was about five overweight ladies floating in inner tubes with their kids. That was the whole crowd.
Wow.
And we stood at the edge of the pool and we did the show just as if it was a big real show. And that was it. In fact, and then the other time we set up in this big auditorium, and the only person was a little 5-year-old kid standing there in the middle of this floor all by himself. We were
Hmm.
actually performing for the sound crew and the caterers.
Hmm.
Nobody came to the show. I don't know why. We still played as if it was a room full of people. We still got paid. By the way, Mark and Howard, they were jilted early in their careers, and that was a set of rules that you didn't break. You gave them the money before they hit the stage. So
Yeah, I think I read about that in Howard's autobiography, because yeah, they
right,
were stiffed a few times. So yeah, it's like pay up and then we'll play.
yeah.
um, so when things are kind of winding down with Mark and Howard, I know you said you did some other gigs and stuff like that, but did it just get to the point where, the heck with it, I'm just not doing it, and you did that other job for a while, and you don't perform anymore, or do you still perform occasionally now?
I'll still perform if we didn't have this COVID going around.
Right. Yeah.
I
Barring
still,
that, I'll say.
yeah,
Yeah.
I still have my band here in Los Angeles, and we're dying to get the green light to start working again.
Mhm.
But I was never the one to walk away from a situation like that. Although a couple of our drummer did. He eventually he got a fear of flying and
Hmm.
didn't want to fly anymore, and he quit the band. And our bass player also got to the point where when we were only working once every couple of months, he said, "This isn't worth it for me." And so from that point on, they would fly the New York guy out.
Okay.
But
Now I'm
music is
familiar with the New York guys. Besides yourself and Andy, and of course Mark and Howard, who were pretty consistent in the Turtles for the 30 years. I mean, who played bass
well,
and
the New York bassist, uh, he had been with them the same amount of time I had, and
okay.
so he was very consistent and a great player and a great guy to hang around with too.
So he came
Yeah,
out to the West Coast shows too, or is that what you're
he
saying?
would fly out from New
Oh, okay.
York and do the
Let's
West Coast shows. Yeah,
let's see if I know his name. I'll look in here.
Donnie, he
Don
goes.
Kisselbach? Is that it?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
His
Yeah.
stage name was Donnie Ice.
Okay. Then you mentioned drummers, so it's Joe Stefko that came out occasionally. That
Joe was their New York drummer and
right.
occasionally did a few shows out here. And yeah, our first drummer from my band Rave Up was Bob, and Bob got the airplane phobia thing,
Mm.
and then we got another guy named Rick Crucier, and he joined and stayed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
All right. Do you stay in contact with him or anybody else that's in the band?
just via Facebook. You know,
Okay.
on birthdays and holidays, we say hi to each other or whatever. Andy and I, we still stay in touch, and we would party. Except he lives in Palm Springs. I'm in LA. I
Mhm.
don't want to drive 90 miles to see him. I'm sorry, you know. But and so in the summertime, he's got a boat in the harbor in Oxnard, and sometimes I'll go visit him there.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, he didn't talk about anything like that when we were talking. We were too busy talking about touring and recording, so that's pretty much what we said with him. So I didn't know what he did on his
Yeah,
free time.
of all the guys, Andy and I used to hang out the most.
Now, did you know him prior? Because I know he had a
No,
career. Oh, okay.
no, I met him in the Turtles. Yeah. Well,
Oh.
actually, our keyboard player got a chance to join the Beach Boys.
Hmm.
He considered that a step up, and so then they hired Andy had been fired for a while, but they hired him back.
Cool. All right. And do you even every so often, occasionally, ever contact Mark or Howard at this point, or is it just like
Well,
that was part of my past? And
it's not. Yeah, I don't.
okay, that's fine.
However, there's one exception. I got a couple of phone calls a few weeks back,
Mhm.
and I don't know who it was. Somebody called and said, "Rick, call me." Who the hell is that? So I thought it might be Mark Volman.
Yeah,
Might be. Maybe
yeah.
they're going to do a concert. So I called Mark, and lo and behold, he was sick in a hospital, and
Mm.
he sounded so bad I could hardly understand what he was saying.
Wow.
And so I could just kind of left it at that. He's not doing well.
Mm.
And I know a few years back, Howard had heart surgery and had back
Right.
surgery and didn't want to perform anymore.
Right.
And so I haven't spoke to him since
Yeah.
then.
Charles and I recently interviewed Ron Dante, so he's basically Howard's replacement. And
Right.
right now they're all on hold, just like yourself. And but Ron says we're hoping to get in maybe in the fall sometime this year. But
Well, I
he's not
hope
going to
so.
push it. He's not. He
Yeah.
wants everything. You know, but I see that on other things too. Like uh, I think Charles just booked for the show Bobby Rydell, and he on his website has July shows booked. Now, whether he does them, I don't know, but it's like it shows like a couple shows in July, a couple in September, so it's like he's slowly coming back. So I don't know if he really will, but they're selling tickets for him. So
Yeah, it all depends on this disease, if the numbers go up or down and how many people get vaccinated. I'm done.
yeah. I'm done with one. I have to do the second one, but I'm getting there. um, I was just kind of curious, the one thing I might stick my toe in is, I like comic books and other things, and there's a comic convention up here in September, and I said, well, maybe if we go with masks, I will go just to walk around. But it's like I don't know if I'm comfortable yet sitting in a stadium with a bunch of people for 2 hours watching a concert yet.
I know everybody's gotten so paranoid over this.
Yeah.
For good reason,
Yeah, but if I do see the numbers going, because it seems like right now they're kind of like still, it's not as low as I want it to be. So I'm like,
Right.
I'm taking my time. But anyway, so assuming that COVID's over, let's say it's over and we're all back to normal and everything like that. What are your plans? Are you planning to tour regularly or just do local gigs? What are your plans?
I have never been a tour guy.
Okay.
Now a couple of times back in the good old days, my band Rave Up, we would play Vancouver, Canada, and be gone for a week or two, or we go to Durango, Colorado, or Vail, Colorado for a week here and a week there. But we never were a touring band. Everybody, we were just playing here in town, and that was enough.
Okay. So, you probably just return to doing local gigs in the Southern California area, basically.
Yes, if they pop up, we'll do them. In the
Yeah.
meantime, I've got a little thing on the side where I'm also an astronomer, and I have a large telescope, and I live in Hollywood, and I get a lot of people going by my building to a restaurant right around the corner, and I set the telescope up on the streets and show passers by the moon and the planets and put out a
Cool.
tip buck. They love me. I'm a neighborhood institution. They said, people got the cell phones. Where you at? I'm by the telescope guy. Oh, I know where that is.
That's really cool, to hustle a gig like that and different things over your life. I wouldn't even think of that, even though that sounds pretty cool.
No, it's really cool because people love it, and they want to hug me. Well, I've got a whole Carl Sagan rap because people will look at Saturn's rings for the first time in a telescope, and they'll go, "Oh my God, I feel so small." And then I tell them, "Don't feel small. You're part of the universe. You have pieces of stars in your body. You are their eyes. You have every right to look up and say, 'Look how big we are.'"
Do you have an education in that, or do you just have an interest in it?
Self-taught. I've been a hobby all my life, and yeah.
And so you like going to places down there like Griffith Observatory and places like that?
I'm only about a mile away, and I'm kind of burned out on that place.
But you've been there, yeah.
But back in the good old days, I had a telescope that was this big around. It
Wow.
weighed about 120 pounds. I would put it in the van, and when the band would play someplace like Mammoth, California, where you're up in the mountains at 9,000 feet, and I would bring that big telescope up there, and oh boy, we just get lost in space.
Wow. Okay. So you're really into it, even and self-taught. That's great. I'm kind of the same way. It's like I've gone to the observatories, and I'm always interested in what like Neil deGrasse Tyson says and stuff like that on shows, and it's all pretty cool. So that's neat that you do that. Anyway, I don't know if I have any more questions. I mean, that's what Charles says. Ask about Turtles things because we're working on a Turtles project ourselves, if he hasn't already let you know. So, any other final thoughts, or if people want to get in contact you either for a gig or just talk astronomy or talk about anything else,
I don't know.
Promote yourself.
You know how these things go. Tomorrow I'll go, oh, I should have said this and this and this, right? But right now I'm blank.
That's okay. So, can you be found on Facebook and website? Okay.
Yeah, although Facebook, it's become a bit of a conundrum to me because, okay, my birthday was only a few days ago. 90 people wished me happy birthday. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I posted a video of some of my artwork, which I'm proud of, some of my music, which I'm proud of. Not one person has seen the video. I've posted it 4 times. I've had people message me. I don't see the video. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I
Well,
see the video.
you have the same issues I have because I could post the stupidest thing up there and get like 100 hits, and then I'll say, because I write books about comic books and animation and music, I say, "Hey, my new book's out." Crickets, crickets, nothing. Zero. And it's like,
I don't understand it.
it's almost like they monitor everything you post and go, this guy's trying to promote something, trying to make money. We can't allow that. I don't know. Anyway. All right. I just wanted to get to talk to you today, and I want to thank Charles Rosenay for introducing me to you. It was a pleasure talking to you today, Rick. And I should ask you this before we go. So you have, I know the nickname Squid. I read that. So obviously it rhymes with Guidotti. But how did you
Very
get the
good.
name Squid? We'll end with that.
That's just about it. Back in high school, we'd all make fun of each other's last names. So some people called me Squidotti. Some people shortened it to Gwid. And before long, to one and all, I'm known as Squid.
Very cool. Okay. And do people like Mark and Howard and everybody else, they refer to you as Squid, or they just
Not so much.
Okay.
It was basically kind of a hippie thing in the late 60s and early 70s. I used to live in Indiana. Everybody called me Squid. So when I moved to California in 73, all the new people, I say, just call me Squid and I'll feel at home. So all my old friends called me Squid, except now they've all passed away.
Oh.
Except for one. I have one friend left who calls me Squid.
Oh.
But it's a throwback.
We'll change
to the
that.
old days.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it was a pleasure speaking with you, Squid or Rick. And we'll talk soon. And I'll thank Charles Rosenay again for introducing me to you. And we'll be on next time with another Fun Ideas podcast.
All right, man. Cool. Take care.
Thanks. Have a good day.